What a good way to start the episode. Yeah.
So, we're going to kick things off, as always, with the most important part of the show.
Definitely. Yeah.
And it is, of course, the Indie of the Week.
Oh, yeah.
And this week I've gone full on indie. It's not a company. It is just an independent group of like-minded individuals. A collective, if you will. I'll preface this with, whenever you get multiple wargamers together trying to discuss what they're going to do on any given occasion, it's like herding cats. and in many respects, this indie is the genesis of that.
Yeah.
Because many moons ago, the ETC, which was the European team competition or championship, they got together. The old world had just been nuked, so the choices were continue with the old world at 8th edition, ad infinitum. That's just how it's going to be. We'll move to something like Kings of War, that was just in 2nd edition, and going great guns. And so they went 9th age.
Yeah,
we'll
none
start
of
our
this.
own.
None of this.
We're going to start our own world with blackjack and hookers.
Forget the blackjack.
And over the past few years now, I say few years, must be like 2016 or 2017.
It's been going for a while.
Been a while, yeah.
Went away.
Yeah.
They've gone through alpha iterations and beta iterations, and they're now on a 2nd edition, and they've added a whole slew of things.
I know we did a good dose of videos on this a while back. Long while back.
I think we sat down with the designers, didn't we? Or some of the team
Yeah.
members behind it. Yeah.
Worth going for a look back in the archives.
Long time ago. If you come to the 9th age and you know nothing about the 9th age, long story short, it is a rank and file fantasy war game. If you can play it in something like Warhammer or Kings of War or Boards of the Things, whatever, you'll find something similar that will work in here. A couple of interesting things that they've done subsequently, though, you can see here on the little landing page, is they have what they call the Essence of War. And this is a sort of a introductory level game, similar to Kings of War Ambush, where you are limited to a character, singular, and then 3 units, and it's fixed. So if you want to play orcs, then you have these specific 3. Now there is like a list building part into it, where you can play around with it, and some of the rules are slightly different from the full 9th Age fantasy battle game, but it gives you a really good idea of how the game actually plays out. You can see here, you can download things like the book itself. The flux cards are like their magic deck.
My favorite thing on this is the papercraft patrols, so you don't even have to buy miniatures to give it a go.
Yeah, exactly. You can just dive right into it. Where are we?
There's a download button in the top right if that's what you're looking for.
I'm desperately looking for it, but I can't see anything.
Right there, Jerry.
Blue.
It was right there.
Blue.
Jerry.
Right there.
It's blue.
Jerry, come on.
Oh, there's there.
Yay.
There we go.
Abadi, abadi.
It's not my fault. Everything's so small and far away for you kids. So, Essence of War, I'm going to do it this way. I will start off by saying that whenever you get into any of these, this one's relatively small as far as production team and artists go, but the full 9th Age is absolutely jam-packed because it is a voluntary project that, everything is given freely by people. Time, effort, and inclination is all there. So if you want to play through, this gives you, as you can see, it's still a 98-page, I think, rule book.
Which is immense.
And this is the small version, so it still goes through your... there's their world for the 9th Age itself. It goes through who the various factions are. So if you don't know who you want to be playing, whether it's the Usklanders or the Beast Herds or whatever it happens to be, you can find a brief sort of blurb about them in here, and then it gets into the full-on rules themselves.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting way of doing it. That is the stat line. The stat line is diverged massively from it. Didn't I say this? Warhammer.
It's not the
Warhammer
classic
was 9.
not the classic weapon skill, ballistic skill that we're not normally used to seeing. Really, so,
They parted ways with the initial iterations of trying to come up with their own Warhammer-esque.
Oh, is the strength toughness chart still in here, or is it gone?
No, it's gone because that would be copyrightable. But because of that, they've come up with some interesting things. So you would have in Warhammer, you have a weapon skill, and you would compare it to your opponent's weapon skill, whereas now you have a defensive and offensive skill, which means that a miniature is no longer as good at attacking as it is at defending. It means you can have more variables, more iterations in there. You can have something that's very aggressive and very poor defensively, or vice versa. So
so your berserkers feel berserky.
Yeah, so changes over time without it just being solely down to how tough or how much armor they have and go, well, they've got 5 attacks and no armor, that's a berserker. Well, now you can go, their defensive skill is terrible. But they're very aggressive, so that becomes it. Also, their advance in March, you're not just doubling your advance to get your March rate. Most times you are, but some things may have identical, so they can't march essentially, or they may have a slightly varied one.
Right. See, so again, that works for me really well narratively, because if you're a guy rocking around in tons of armor, no, you don't run today, son. You're too heavy. You don't run.
Yeah, unless you're a dwarf. So
natural sprinters.
The strength against resilience is just that's the table now as opposed to the old reference table. So you just -1 from the other to see what you need to hit and so on and so forth.
Looks more in line with the way that they changed Warhammer and 40k. They just ignore and stuff.
Could be. Stop looking at their rule books when they killed the old world. We all go our own directions.
Just like all these people.
So anyway, if you
looks really simple.
Interested in getting into it, this is a good way of doing it, because you just need a small amount of figures, units, or big wooden bases. The other thing is there's no reforming in this. There is in the main game, so you can drop from 2 ranks to 4 or whatever you want. This, it's just footprint, kind of like although you've got figure removal.
Yeah,
but it's very fixed to make learning the game mechanics very easy,
a little easier.
Which is
I saw good. I saw that they covered basically every one of the armies that we saw in the lore. But anyway, so there's all the lists, the breakdown of lists and everything as well in there, which is kind of cool.
Oh, sorry, Jerry.
No, you were about to say something. I was just going to.
Well, it's a question I have. So let's say we've got 4 people here, right? Which of the fantasy factions would each of us consider if we were thinking of diving into this?
Anything except Dry Undead. They are the worst. Right there. That one on the left.
Personally, I think I'd be going for Dry Undead, actually.
Just the worst. Absolute worst person.
I mean, for me, I would go for the Sippy Undead, so vampirish.
Oh, vampires. That's cool.
Well, it's the closest I ever came to playing in the old world. My mates over in England had actually made me a vampire accounts list. What was it called? The Von Karstein Family Mafia?
Von Karstein.
Wow.
One zombie.
I think I'd take the opportunity to make an entirely new dwarven army. So I'd get a bunch of I get the avatars of war dwarves, and I'd use those to make the basis of my force. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
So I'd have to go for rats.
Rats? You would go down Skeveny?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I love my Skaven boys.
I remember seeing people with a screaming bell removing half their army because they've screwed up the roll.
Omelette and eggs.
Yeah. Anyway. So is this the layout? Is this basically what you need to collect in order to play, say, the Kingdoms of Equitaine? You just get those things.
You would get a single character, in this case a damsel, 10 archers, 8 sergeants, and 2 Pegasus knights.
And that's it. Yeah.
And that's it.
Oh, and then some special rules on the other side,
where you can list build within this version of the game further on. But otherwise, it's very set, very standardized, and probably a great way of introducing people with a really relatively low model count, but a few different armies in there. So we shall leave the essence of war behind and plow on then into Ninth Age proper.
So we've moved from the eau de toilette to the perfume. Is what you're saying.
So you may say that. I wouldn't say that, but you may say that. So we have here the big download page. So you can see there is some of the older versions are still kicking around as well. You've got your rule book. You have a older style lists here. You've got slimline versions with a lot of the nonsense in it for people who want to print out and bring their book with them.
Right, yeah.
So all of the backgroundy bits.
Yeah. Which is, it's all good. And you can see there a whole host of things. Orc and Goblins got their new version last week.
Oh, nice.
Should be
so they're still iterating on things, which is
cool. Yeah. They're constantly in and updating and improving and rebalancing, because as soon as they rebalance Orcs and Goblins and bring it up to speed, then it'll turn out that some other faction is now ridiculous against Orcs and Goblins because of something.
Well, this is always the truth of every war game. You can playtest as much as you want until you release it, and then that's when the real playtest begins, because you can guarantee someone out there is going to be... this is a term we haven't used in a long time, but they're going to go cheese hunting.
It's the way of it. You can see here the army books themselves without all the additional fluff and background and stuff. They're only 24-page lists. Army organization's very simple. It's very close to the old school.
It is,
Warhammer, where you must take 25% core choices, no limit to specials, and 40% characters. That's interesting, because it means you can go completely ham on giants. And I'm not saying I used to do that with old Warhammer in Goblins, but they were 205 points per giant, and they were core choices for Goblins back in the day. Well, Orcs and Goblins, I suppose, technically, because they were the same.
It looks from the points cost that we've seen here for some of the heroes and things, that it works to around the same kind of size of armies that you'd expect from kind of Warhammer Fantasy anyway. So you're looking at like a 2k armies, 3k armies, something like that.
You're looking at a similar model count, yeah. You may find that the points values are substantially higher. If I find some of our little fellas, it gives you a better indication, because there we go.
Rabble.
So Goblin was 2 points with Spear. Because they used to be like half a point for Spear, 2.5 points. Anyway, so 4 points. So they're not quite double-ish, but kind of like that. So you may find that your games are banged at sort of 3,000 to 4,000 points rather than 2 to 2.5.
Yeah.
But the figure count on the tabletop is going to be the same.
Yeah, well, if you're looking at Feral Orc Marauders, you're starting out at 10 guys and then going up to Up to 25?
Up to 25.
If you want to, yeah.
I
mean, it has having sizes and stuff in there as well.
Having caps on units as well is handy. Not every unit has it, but I'm not saying anybody here ever fielded 100 Night Goblins in one unit with the front rank made entirely of heroes.
A Death Star.
It was very much that.
That was always the way of it, was you always had the big centerpiece units that were just there to hammer the hell out of your opponent.
Yeah. Was it packed full of fanatics as well, Jerry?
It may have been packed full of fanatics with madcap mushrooms, always strike first. Bad Moon Banner and Ruby Chalice, so -2 to hit them. You're not coming near me. Just go away.
I do like the idea of
my
this.
giants just stamp on you because I brought you.
And one of the great things about this, because this is essentially a miniatures agnostic game, you just have to have your basing done right.
Yeah.
There are so many ranges out there now that you can go to.
Well, have we look at some of the ranges in a minute, because there are various companies, 3D printing people and all sorts who are, if not sponsors, then I'm trying to think, friends of.
Good proponents of it,
brand their stuff. So Avatars of War is one. You'll see the Ninth Age seal stuck on things. Here you can see the main rulebook and the people in charge of said things and the production team. So it really is a fan and a community-driven project, and without the people working on it and supporting it, you wouldn't have all of this. You wouldn't have the stories, the artwork, the layout and design, everything else, because there's nobody chucking money at this in the background to promote it alongside a range of things. You see there it talks about scale and general principles, and there's some really interesting bits and pieces in it.
Do they have a disco?
Magic works. Do they have a disco? Probably not. I don't know. Maybe.
I was just curious.
I know they've got a blog and a forum these days. Probably everybody does. Who knows?
Okay, just in case people wanted to actually get involved, if they have a Discord.
Well, if you want to get involved, there's the forum.
The forums, yeah.
It's it's, well, there was somebody
old school
an hour ago. It means it doesn't disappear that way. Where am I? I've lost myself.
Sorry, distraction.
I really like the last time that I looked at the Ninth Age. I think it was maybe a year or so after they'd basically burned the old world to the ground.
It was very black and white and text heavy. It reminded me of the old rule sets I used to get in the.
It was very 1.1 C section 5.2 this kind of thing. Whereas here they've definitely, well, as you can see, put in the effort to make it look gorgeous as well as being in depth as well. So yeah,
they've allowed round bases in. You know how you can work out easily which ones can fight back against that? By putting on a square.
So instead of imagining the line, just make it square and you have it. Have the line. Have the line. Don't imagine the line. There. Have the line. Don't imagine the line. Got it.
So this is 228 pages of loveliness. I won't go through it all. There's some interesting bits and pieces in here though that I do want to draw people's attention to. Beyond the sort of the standard things you would expect to see, like magic and army lists and they have in the quick reference sections towards the end. There's some really nice artwork throughout this as well. They have statistical probabilities.
Oh, right. Okay.
So, I'm going to jump to it. So people may have heard the term math hammer, where somebody goes, I'm not sure if I'm going to make that charge, or I'm not sure if my unit will actually do any damage when I attack that unit.
Yeah.
Will I route it? Because I need to route it in one turn, or I'm going to get flanked by everything and the world will go away. And some people are really good at doing those calculations in their head, and other people can't.
Mm-hmm.
So they have here for various things. So for example, we have our charges. So charges are randomized with 2d6. But then there's a couple of different things like Swift Stride give you additional dice and rerolls and reroll and Swift Stride. So you can see there, is that 8-inch charge going to be something that you could pull off? Well, yeah, you have a 2 and 3 chance of doing it.
That's cool.
With charge and a reroll. But they also do it for the likes of combats as well. So you can see down here, will I stand? Will that unit break? Depending on the various things that are coming in, your chances to cast a spell successfully. Completely unnecessary for gameplay. But if you're looking to learn a bit more about the mechanics and work out how your army performs and how it should perform, that's really nice to have those sitting and go, well, will I get that spell off with 3d6? Or do I need to go to 5? And, things like that, which is interesting in itself because the casting, the magic phase, you have a spell deck that your opponent draws from, and then that tells you how many dice you and your opponent will have, and then you can channel and do other stuff as well. But then once that card's been drawn, it gets discarded. So you have 8 cards. If you play a 6-turn game, and that decreases over time. However, if you ever roll a triple, you roll on the miscast table, and if you roll a triple with 3 dice, you -1 off the effect. So if you roll 3 ones, it would actually 3 dice, you would actually go to 0, so no effect, so it's okay. But if you rolled 5 dice or more, then you add +1, so you can go up to 777, and your caster is removed as casualty. Blah, blah, blah.
It just explodes.
So knowing probabilities are handy, because sometimes you don't need to roll those extra 2 dice and force yourself closer to exploding the wizard's face. If you go, well, chances are I will actually succeed on 3. So, it's a nice little quality of life thing to have. Not necessary. Obviously, cover and large creatures and things like that as well are quite good. So that's the main rules. Like I say, some lovely artwork in there as well from a whole range of people. There's obviously the best, yellow and black, like Everland used to be, Sun and Style. God bless them.
See, I kind of want to do a little shopping basket to see just what it would take to get the basic army up and running for this.
From the Essence of War thing, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, just to get an idea of, what is your buy-in.
There are on the download page, by the way, after all of your bits and bobs and your additional background and lore, there's a whole section on the art, on the background, the world itself.
Oh, cool.
And then they used to do the 9th scroll, which were sort of periodicals. They haven't done one in a couple of years now, but there's some interesting bits and pieces in there. But some will be for older iterations or editions of books. But other pieces are still fine. And then you can see there it's now been translated into French, German, Italian, Polish, Spanish, Chinese.
Again,
as well.
Sundancer will be happy.
So I think the Orc and Goblin book that came out last week.
He reached Chinese.
Came out in all of the languages, all 7 languages on the same time, which is a good way to grow the fan base as well. But you can also see that there are army builder files for the major army builders.
Nice.
Battle Scribe, and they also have their own living in here. He said, "Where are we?" 9th Age
search an army list.
I'm going to go for that. And then we can go all armies.
Okay.
Are they backgrounds? Oh, they might be backgrounds. I'll just do it from here. He said his inability to navigate the internet is terrible. Create an army. So you can come in here, create one, set your max points value, send it as a private one. Look, all sorts of autofills. Cool. On tabletop main stage. That must have been for UKG.
Oh, yeah.
So you just go in, select a unit, whatever it happens to be. Let's go Beast. You can give him a name if you want to give him a name, and add him to your party. And then once he's added, you can start going in and tinkering. So you can give him specific upgrades or whatever it is, and the points will adjust. We make him your general because we want that. Give him the hunting call and so on and so forth. Mount options.
I assume it would be handy to have his entry open just to know what all that is. Or do they have anything on here that sort of dovetails in and shows you the rules?
Those.
There you go. You can see his rules there.
Okay, cool.
And then if you click on them, it'll take you through to the
perfect. Sorry, that's what I was curious about, because again, those are quality of life things in an army builder that you really, really want.
Yeah. What did I just buy? Oh, right, okay.
another nice thing you can do with the army builder itself is go in and have a nosy at other people's armies as well. Don't know what that says there. So I'm going to ignore what that says.
Search an army list, is that?
That's the one I'm after. Yeah. And then we can just go in and we'll go search an army, and we'll go search for could be anyone. Let's have a look at Dwarven Holds. Set your points, set your version, search, and then here's other people's armies. Any particularly want to see?
Possibly a dwarf one.
Let's have a look at
let's go
one or something. I don't know.
Try Thorgrim.
Oh, there you go. Thorgrims. Yeah. Where's that one?
Down the bottom.
Oh, look how far down it is. I'm going to go
making you work, Jerry. Making you work.
Not the in between Thorgrim, which would be better. I imagine it would have been great.
So you can see what other people are buying and the points cost they're playing at and that kind of thing, which is nice.
Yeah. Interesting thing about mount and the like. So in Wamster, if you got somebody and you put them on a horse, them and their horse had stat lines. If you got somebody and put them on a beast, them and their beast had stat lines. And if you were heading them, you'd be randomizing between them.
Yeah.
In this, there's sort of a delineation. When it's small, you mostly will be working off the stats of your rider.
Right.
And then, the movement from the cavalry mount and maybe armor improvements, very old school Warhammer. But when you get bigger things like dragons and stuff like that, once it hits a certain point, you then will be just using the dragon stat line. With then maybe the character's leadership, or in this case, it's called discipline instead. So you get the sense that actually putting them on the back is people aren't going to be randomizing and heading the tiny man hiding behind the neck occasionally. It's just a case of you've just got one stat line to aim for, which speeds things up a bit.
That's good.
See, he's a fan of Dragon Seekers and Runesmiths, Rake of Greybeards and Clan Warriors. So it means you can go in, because this is obviously a very tournament-centric community to begin with, although they are looking to expand more and more beyond that, because that's the driving force. They won't survive without getting more people in and playing the 9th Age. So it can't all be about tournament gaming, but it means you can go in and you can find some really shit hot lists You just can. I mean, you just things you wouldn't think about doing, and then you go. But the interesting thing about net built lists is actually executing the plan. Because sometimes the list is very specific to somebody's play style or they have very detailed idea of how they're going to deploy and what way things are going to be used. And you can go, well, they've won 5 tournaments in a row, and then you just get it and push it all forward and get millered. And you go, oh, I've made a terrible mistake here.
But it's like popping bet into an F1 car and go, do a lap.
Yeah, floor it, big lad, floor it. So,
and he crashed.
You've got your army builder and the like as well. And like I say, there is all of the background and world that they've built up around this, from the map itself to the various background and art for each of them as well. Go up, have a quick look here. Like I say, there is a blog and there's a forum. The blog gets updated every so often, and it can be things like, we've got the new Orc and Goblin Army book out, or it can be like a word from our sponsors, so to speak, where some online retailers or 3D sculptors who support the Ninth Age may have like money off and things. So I know they did that with the Orc and Goblin book launching. There were several small creators had sort of special deals running for people who wanted to grab sort of 3D prints and stuff like that as well. So the blogs can be a whole host of different things, from background, lore, story, upcoming events, whatever happens to be. And the forum is, as forums are, filled with a whole host of things, from anybody looking for list building advice to rules queries and things like that. If we go to miniatures, this is good because it gives you an idea of, both the lists that are out there, 3D sculptors, their licensed sellers, companies who, are involved. So if you go, well, what were you talking about playing, Justin?
Vampire Counts.
Vampire Counts. So Undying Dynasty, that sounds a bit dry, undeady.
Vampire Covenant underneath it. There you go.
Can you? Vampire Covenant, thank you. So you can go there and go, well, here's a list of suggested companies who make miniatures that will fit the style of this list. So you can go in and start saying, well, there's some zombie types and dry undead and wolf riding whites, apparently. Filthy. So as far as the miniature side go, there's a whole list of people that you can go to through that page then, and just to see what you can find. And it's a very good resource for people who just want to find fantasy miniatures as well. You're going, well, I fancy doing a Ratman army, Scream Shay. So you would go off and find his tiny rat dudes. I then go, oh, I've never heard of these before.
Oh, those are cool.
They look great for plague monks or whatever the plaguish equivalent in the vermin list is. I don't need them. I have 120 plague monks and they're still not assembled. But other non-me people may want to use this as a valuable resource for finding fantasy armies. No dry undead, though. I don't do that.
There are times when I think Jerry's just a dragon that's polymorphed into human form.
It's all about Warhammer Fantasy for me. This side of this room you can't see is just Warhammer Fantasy up the bazoo, except dry undead. So
I think the thing is, it's kind of important to think about there is you were saying something earlier, like they need new blood in to keep the game going on both the creative side of things and also just from the general playing side. And there's loads of companies out there that do support it. So if you are someone who used to play Warhammer Fantasy, or you're excited about what's happening with the old world and what's coming down the line, it's not like something where you have to wait for that. If you've got the idea to make armies like that, try the Ninth Age. It's all there free. So just go and download it and have a play around with it and see what you think. So
I'm not going to lie. I am tempted to do a little patrol of vampires.
Yeah.
Because it's not something I've ever painted before. It could be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So it's definitely the way to go. I mean, they have on the main sort of page, they have their sort of mission statement, which is put together by the founders about the game itself, where it came from, growing the setting, maintaining their current players. So they're sort of their ideas behind it. The idea to attract new players in, so they don't just want to be where the 40, 50-year-old ex-Warhammer players and their friends.
Yeah.
You know, they want it to be a thing of its own, standing on its own 2 feet. And there's some really interesting additions and iterations within it, and the rule set as well. Might not be for everyone, but since it's all free and it's all sitting there, why not go?
I definitely think, as Justin was saying, going for that Essence of War vibe, trying that out, seeing whether or not you like the flavor of what they're doing. And then, you know, if you don't like the game, well, you've just bought yourself a little tiny army that you could use in Kings of War or another game.
Well, I mean, grab their print and play 2D models, or go to one-page rules and get their print and play 2D papercraft stuff.
My thinking is I might dig into this, build a little army list, and when I'm at Expo this year, that'll be my Expo challenge, is to actually find those miniatures that I would need for this. I think that could be an interesting one for folks to give a go if you want to join me.
Yeah, cool.
Fancy, very fancy. So there we go. The 9th age. Get it before there's a 10th age. Beat the rush. Beat the rush.
Who needs the old world, man?
Yeah. Right. We shall take a quick switch, and when we come back, we'll be taking a look at the news.